Linda Cooper, Yorktown Supervisor, and welcome to Yorktown, Your Town. Today I have with me two guests, Msgr. Dermot Brennan from St. Patrick's Church and Rabbi Stanley Urbas from the Yorktown Jewish Center. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
They're with me to talk about the role of religious institutions in any community, but specifically in our community, in Yorktown. And I think that as I've been supervisor now 3 years, it has become increasingly apparent what a tremendous role the religious institutions in this town play here in town. We have everything from the Quaker Meeting House, the Lutheran Church, the Methodist Church, the Jehovah's Witness, and the Mormon Church, and multiple synagogues, several Catholic churches. You just sort of go on and on. We've got evangelical Christian and everything else. It seems to me that we're one town, but we're united in some way by a tremendous amount of faith. I was wondering if you could tell me what it's like to be the head of a religious institution in the town and how you may have come to get there.
You're a bigger head.
Okay, I'll go first.
You talk first.
I got here because I was assigned here by Cardinal O'Connor shortly after he came to New York. I had been, previous to that, I graduated from St. Joseph Seminary, was ordained there in 1956. And then after 2 years in the country up in Liberty, New York, and 12 years in education, I was sent to Immaculate Heart of Mary Church in Scarsdale, which began my association with Westchester. I've been in the county ever since, 10 years at Scarsdale, and then my first pastorate was at Our Lady of Victory in Mount Vernon. I was there for 5 years, and then assigned here in October of 1985. I came to the parish, from a parish of 450 families to one of 3,200. And it was a bit daunting, but I felt that I didn't know where Yorktown was. I was sent here, and I figured in my own sense that the Holy Spirit wanted me here, and he's been very, very good to me, as have the people of Yorktown, and particularly the people of St. Patrick's. And in that time, since 1985, we've grown from 3,200 families to about 4,200 families now. So it's a big family that I'm the father of.
That's an interesting way of putting it. And Rabbi?
Well, ours is a smaller congregation. I came here in 1962 straight out of the seminary. I hadn't been to any other congregation. We must have had, I don't know, 50 families then with a small religious school. Now we're about just under 300 families with a fairly large synagogue school. It's been an interesting experience, been an interesting trip, and it's been interesting to watch Yorktown grow and to be part of that growth. I've been pretty lucky. I think we have a wonderful congregation, and I must tell you that our 4 kids grew up in this town. They went to high school here, and they've lived here. They were born in Mount Kisco and at the hospital, and we've lived here for since 1962. It's been a wonderful place to live and to have children grow up in, and so I'm very grateful to God for this opportunity. So I'm happy.
When I look at both St. Patrick's and the Yorktown Jewish Center, I see entities that have gotten involved in the community. Thought maybe you could run down some of the, what I would call, extracurricular activities that both institutions have gotten involved in. I mean, you are all sponsoring Boy Scouts and doing Midnight Run. Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, that's part of our heritage, of course, is to reach out to people in need. And we've been able to do that through Yorktown Help, which is a very admirable group of people, and we are big supporters of them providing a lot of the financial and material supplies for that. We also do a midnight run about 6 or 7 times a year down to the homeless in New York City. We have.
Can I stop you right
Sure.
there? Could you tell us a little bit, tell people what Midnight Run is and what you're doing when you're going down?
Well, we go down, we usually have a van and a truck filled with food and clothing, and then another van filled with people. About 8 or 9, maybe 10 or 12 people go. We spend weeks preparing, sorting out clothes. The people are very, very generous. I'm always glad to see a change in fashions because that means we get what they're not wearing anymore. But they're always very good material. The people bring us things showing their own respect for the poor that we are reaching. And we go down, we leave the parish at 11 o'clock at night, get to Midtown Manhattan about midnight, which is why it's called the Midnight Run. And we're usually down there going to specific spots that are set up for us by Midnight Run headquarters, which is in Dobbs Ferry. They coordinate all the different organizations that go. And after those 6 hours of giving them clothing and giving them food and helping them in whatever we always come back re-examining our own values. Very grateful that we live in Yorktown and the surrounding area, but aware that one can get by on very meager resources if, and sometimes with a lot less concern and worry about who's going to take it or can I lose it.
And some of the reactions I've heard from some of the people who've been going on the Midnight Run is that they have gotten a very different understanding of the homeless, that are of who might be homeless when they're down, waking up people from their sleep, because obviously if they're arriving in at midnight, in order to give food and clothing, they kind of have to shake somebody and say, here, would you like this? And they find it, rather than somebody being upset, they're still very grateful.
They're not only grateful, they're very unselfish. If we offer them something and it doesn't fit well or whatever, they'll give it back and say, Father, that's for somebody else. And they also, we've gotten to know a number of them. We go down and spend time after we've provided for their needs, spending 10 or 15 minutes at a couple of those locations, just chatting with them about everything, from sports to politics, and they're very much aware of what's happening politically in the city. And whatever it might be, their careers, some of them ask for white shirts and ties and jackets because they're going on job interviews the next day. It's a very interesting experience to have. And as I say, you come back really evaluating your own desires of what we really need and what we want.
So you're doing Midnight Run and a few others?
Well, one of the nice things that we do this time of year is we have one of the members of our parish works at Holy Comforter. And so he takes the whole list of the 200 residents there, asks each person, what they would like for Christmas, a specific gift. Then I make up charts for all of that. They're posted in the vestibule of the church. And beginning on one Saturday evening till the next Sunday afternoon, just in those less than 24 hours, those are all assigned. People sign up for them, and they bring them in. We're gathering them now, and next week we'll bring them over, and those people at the Holy Comforter will be able to get individual gifts that they have requested.
That's very nice. And you've got a Boy Scout troop.
We have a Boy Scout troop. We have God's Time, which is our teenage youth group. We have, of course, St. Patrick's School, which contributes to the education of the area. And also in our religious education program, we provide religious education for 2,020 public school children. They come one afternoon a week, but we run the program Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning. So in that time, we accommodate the 2,000 children.
The CCD program.
Yes, CCD, okay. Right.
Now over at the Yorktown Jewish Center.
At the center, where we try to get ourselves involved with different aspects of the community. Our youth group runs a Seder each year for disabled adults. We collect food and for Yorktown Help. The holiest day of the year is Yom Kippur. It's a day of fast, and that's generally when we have a large appeal for the food patch that helps feed the pantries of the Westchester area. We have another program too that a lot of people are starting to pick up on. Very often we'll have people who will buy floral displays for the pulpit on a Sabbath or on a festival. Some people are beginning to take the money for that and donate that to a food program or to a food patch program or to another food program, and then put something, we have some artificial flowers on the pulpit, and that money goes to help the poor people who need some help. So we do that same kind of thing. One of the things that we do too is try to make sure that our children, we have a bat mitzvah program for our children, and every child who becomes bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah has to pick a charity. If they're going to get some gifts, they know that charity is a Jewish virtue, and they have to, with their parents, pick a charity that they're going to give money to, or part of what they're getting to, and they decide amongst themselves how much. But that way they know going in that you can't just be a taker, you have to be a sharer.
Right.
So these are the kinds of things that we get involved with.
Now, you're just your two institutions are just two of many. I know that I think the Presbyterian Church is affiliating now with a hospice group, and we have the Genealogy Center down at the Church of the Latter-day Saints. I mean, each of the different parishes. I know the Lutheran Church, I think, has gotten involved with the homeless shelter, as the Presbyterian. Each of them has found a different avenue in which to pour their good works. Is there a time where you all come together to share and figure out who's doing what and what needs the community might have?
Well, only some of us know what we're doing. But what we do, I'm sorry. Well, we do, I think we meet regularly. We have a group that's been meeting, I'd say, at least 25 years.
That's great.
I would say that's fair, right?
Well, it certainly was meeting when I got here 15 years ago, and I was very impressed with the idea.
Yeah, and we meet every 6 weeks or so in someone else's synagogue or church. We try to keep track of what we're doing. We also try to anticipate problems in the community that may be of a religious nature. One of the things that's always struck me is that the people who meet with our colleagues are kind, they're thoughtful, they're responsive people. It's just a good mix. Even when people change, there seems to be a nice feeling amongst the men and women who come. And for me, I think that helps to set a tone in the community. When we get along, it's easier to have our parishes get along with each other. Maybe an example for that would be our annual Thanksgiving service that we run. Okay, that's a highlight.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I think each year we have a interfaith service. It meets at a different house of worship. Each year, a different pastor or rabbi will preach. Everybody gets involved with the service. This year's was just at Temple Beth Am here in Yorktown. Last year we were at your church.
Yes,
okay.
we came to St. Patrick's because it was a centennial.
That's right.
But as Stanley said, every member of the clergy who is present participates in it, is assigned a role. And out of that also comes a sense of sharing and giving, and that there's a collection taken wherever the church or synagogue is, and that money goes to Yorktown Health. So it's not only bringing together the people to share in a worship service, which is interfaith, but also to show that there's a benefit that extends beyond that house of worship to the people who are needy in our community.
We just had Joan Seabolt on the show,
yes,
talking about Yorktown Health and Jenny's End and Thrifty Me and the effort that they're trying to do. And it's a somewhat invisible effort. And she talked about how all of the churches and synagogues were helping in that effort.
It's a great consciousness-raising event, because I think a lot of people think everybody in Yorktown is well off, and yet we're subject to illness. There are breakups of families. There's long-term unemployment. There can be any number of catastrophic events that happen, which immediately plunge people into need. And sometimes living in a community like this, people are reluctant to come forward and say, I have a problem, I have a need. But an organization like Yorktown Health and our own parishes, we deal with it, our own congregations deal with that very quietly but very efficiently all the time. They know that there's a place to go where they can get some help. Noni Braddock does a great deal. Noni's a member of our interfaith clergy. She is not a clergy person herself, but she is certainly very effective director of the Beaver Retreat and Conference Center. And she has her angel fund there. And a lot of the people feel perhaps a less shy about going to Noni because she's not the local pastor or the local rabbi, that they would have perhaps a difficult time admitting they were having trouble. And so we all feed into that too. We help Noni with funds and with clothing, so that there's a great deal of interaction going on, very quietly, as you say, Linda, but very effectively, we think.
Yeah, I was just going to say that maybe I said it a few moments ago, but I want to really emphasize this, that feeling of community that we have amongst ourselves, I think, is both a reflection and a cause for making Yorktown a good place to live. people move up, Jewish people move up into the area, come visit our synagogue, and they say, "What's it like in Yorktown?" And I can say with a full heart that it's a good place to live, it's a good place to raise families, and you know, every once in a while, Jewish people are subjected to some anti-Semitism. You almost never see it. You almost never see it here. At least people have the good sense to be still about it, because in the face of the good feeling of the community, they would be anathema. That's how supportive Yorktown is as a place to live. I remember a few years ago, we were talking about this, that some misguided soul put a swastika, some swastikas, a graffiti on the walls of Temple Beth Am, and the next morning, or 2 days later, I mean, the clergy, we were all out there, and members of our congregation were out cleaning up the synagogue. That came with a full heart. Nobody had to be browbeaten, and that was the spirit of Yorktown. Right. That was the spirit of Yorktown.
Right. Well, I do think you know, we've certainly seen it's been very important. The social welfare needs of the town are often met through institutions, through your congregations, through yourselves. And I think in many ways, the cities have social welfare departments. Towns don't. And so what we have instead are our temples and our churches. And so I think you see a slice of life that's very different, that in many ways is hidden. That people who may have fallen on bad times, or people who may be in need, or people who have an accident or are sick, or have somebody passing or having problems in another state where it's totally invisible to their neighborhood, but where it's churning them up inside, often turn to you all for strength. Is that
Very much so. I think there are other evidences of it too. I can think of two things within the last few years that when we were approached 3 years ago about setting up a holiday display, and we ended up with a menorah and a manger. And then the following spring, I believe it was, we were invited by Noni as part of her Your God, My God, Our God program to show again the interfaith interaction. Rabbi Urbas and I were asked to, we did it in our church, at Stone Church, but it could have been done anywhere, shared a whole evening that we called From Passover to Eucharist. And when we were finished for making our presentations and asking a lot of questions, one of the things that many people commented on was that not only had they not seen anything like this before, a rabbi and a Catholic priest sitting down to discuss rather sensitive issues, because there are things that Stanley's faith does not teach that we do, and vice versa, but that they could see two of us as actually good friends. And interacting with a lot of humor, by the way, because we enjoy each other's company. But it said it had a broader effect than that this was a discussion in which there was no challenge, no animosity, no defensiveness. It was just open presentation of what we believe and what we teach, with a great deal of respect for one another's beliefs and teachings.
showing the interrelationship, perhaps, also between the two religions.
Oh, no question about that.
Yes, we have, when there are programs in the church, we have a lot of people from our synagogue that come over, and vice versa.
Yes.
So there's a nice feeling. I have a story to tell that it isn't about clergy, but it tells me a lot about the spirit of the town. Some years ago, I got a call one evening from either a policeman or a member of our congregation that there was smoke in our synagogue, and the fire department was there. And I took off like a shot, and I'm just like a quarter of a mile away, and I come tearing in, and coming out of the building, there was smoke. There was no fire, but there was smoke. And coming out of the building was one of our fire people, a fireman, was coming out carrying a Torah. Now, these people were smart enough and sensitive enough. These were not Jewish people. They went straight to the heart of the thing. They knew what was important to other people.
That's wonderful.
And they saved the Torah. It could have been a fire. They didn't know, and it turned out not to be. But it was that spirit that I think it's stuck in my mind, and I think that's the spirit of Yorktown.
That's a wonderful story. Yeah.
It is. It is. I know, Noni, we were saying over in the Beaver Conference Farm, I mean, they like this often It's not, well, they'll have a Zen Buddhist retreat going on. I mean, so we do end up having, and they have the Peace Garden now.
Yes.
So we have a lot of things that try to bind, and they have a chapel over there that says, "Come ye of all faiths." And I think that's the message, perhaps, that of tolerance.
Well,
that
we've also seen wonderful growth, and we've been able to share that with, at the Presbyterian Church, where Charles Barton is the pastor, adding a whole new development there building-wise. And we enjoyed the tour to see it and to see how his parish was growing. And then across the street with Pastor Johnson at the Lutheran Church, and to see that, remember, we went over to see the beautiful stained glass windows that they've added. And we take great delight in that, because overall it says that the religious atmosphere of this town is growing stronger and stronger. And people are very concerned about the moral fiber, perhaps, of the nation. And you do what you can where you are. You bloom what you're planted, as the sign says. And we think that there's a very strong move in that in our town, that all the parishes and congregations try very hard to bring people into a real approach to life, bringing our religious principles to bear on them, and therefore giving them an added dimension that a merely political or sociological society wouldn't even venture into.
Now you get a different perspective, because you're not only the head of the parish here, but you're sort of the vicar of...
The vicar of northern Westchester and Putnam counties.
And where's the boundaries for that?
Well, the boundaries would be from St. Anne's Parish in Ossining through St. Teresa's in Briarcliff over to St. Patrick's in Armonk. By the way, we have 4 St. Patrick's in this area, our own, Armonk, Bedford, and Verplanck. But we don't get each other's mail. And then it goes north to as far as Brewster and to Cold Spring. There are 5 parishes in Putnam, and there are 17 in northern Westchester. So it's a large area that I am, basically the vicar is the local representative of Cardinal O'Connor and Bishop Patrick Sheridan, who's the vicar general. We would be the local vicars representing them and trying to be a conduit of information and communication.
And in terms of the entire archdiocese, how large are we?
The archdiocese is 10 counties, from Staten Island up to Ulster and Sullivan, everything in between. And I don't know the population. I would bet it's close to 2 million Catholics. And at the same time, those 10 counties are divided into 19 vicariates. So there are 19 vicars.
And we're somewhere in the 4th or 5th largest of that?
We would be very close to the largest, I guess, perhaps.
Very close to the largest.
Well, our parish, St. Patrick's, is one of the largest in the area, but this whole area, since the Sprain tied in with the Taconic and 280 and the 684 was open, and you've got a corridor here of transportation, this whole area has just, from Yorktown to Somers, up to Mayapack, to Carmel, to Brewster, and over to Cold Spring. As you know, Linda has just exploded in population, and with that explosion comes more people to be members of our parish. We find members coming in all the time,
and
our congregations.
The synagogues don't tie together in the same way, or do they?
Well, no, no, we don't. We have a Reformed synagogue in town. Ours is the Yorktown Jewish Center is a conservative synagogue. There are some other conservative synagogues in Briarcliff, Mount Kisco, in Mahopac. There's I don't think there's an Orthodox synagogue in Mount Kisco, but no, we don't get together that way. Although amongst the clergy, amongst the rabbis, we have an association of rabbis. There's a Westchester Board of Rabbis, which most of us are members of. When people know I'm from Yorktown, I'm probably the rabbi of the largest Catholic, conservative rabbi of the largest Catholic vicariate in north of New York.
And we're glad to have you.
Yeah, and it's really a pleasure. But we're a much smaller population, and each rabbi tends to focus more in the town or in the congregation that he serves or that she serves. And we have amongst us, we've had a consortium of conservative synagogues, and we have put on programs several times a year, and that program is going forward because we are also growing, not at the same rate. Most of the Jewish people can't find Route 684, so we're growing a little slower, but we do have growth, and we do get together from time to time. So that same spirit is with us too.
Do you see any change in the? You mentioned that it seems to be a strengthening that's been coming in. But do we see any changes coming in the near future as the way people approach their churches? At one point, the church life was sort of a waning part of people's existence, and then it seems to be resurging again. Do you see it having a stronger part of a community life, less of a part of a community life, or no change?
No, I think we've kind of turned the corner on that. I think the yuppie approach to life has proven to be not too successful, certainly not as successful as it had been heralded to be. And I think that people are beginning to recognize that without some spirituality in their lives, no matter what material things you have, they just lose their value, because what you do with those for others is really the hallmark of what your spiritual life will be about. And so I think that the nation is undergoing a lot of self-examination, and without getting into issues, we're beginning to see that we're seeing a breakup in family life, and beginning to examine what's causing that. And I think as a result of that, we're seeing people realize that if there's a good spiritual core, there will be a better family. We had a priest years ago who had a motto: the family that prays together stays together. And so we're emphasizing that kind of thing. And our worship in our Catholic Church has become much more inclusive than it ever was before, with the music, with the change to the English from the old Latin that I grew up with, and much more participation in Mass than we ever had before. We had a wonderful concert Sunday night of one of the outstanding composers, Marty Haugen, who's made remarkable contributions to a new culture, really, for Catholics to be worshiping in English with a modern kind of song. And we've brought Latin American song we've brought a lot of gospel music, because they speak of joy. And for a long time, we were under this ethic that was very somber and very serious. And when you worship God, as much as we hold him in awe, he wants us to be joyful, happy people. And that's what I see, and I think that's bringing people. We have people come to St. Patrick's from Katona, from Mount Kisco, from Cortland, from Somers, from anywhere they want to come. Parish boundaries really don't mean anything anymore. People go where you're fed. And we think that we feed them well at St. Patrick's, and I think the increase of attendance attests to that.
Well, we're moving into both the Hanukkah and the Christmas holiday, and the Kwanzaa, and all the variety of end-of-year holidays. Is there something you would like to say to the community as we move into the Hanukkah?
Hanukkah has changed over the years in terms of the way it's observed. It was originally considered a minor festival in the value system of festivals. Biblical festivals are the most important, and the ones that came later used to take a back seat, and the Hanukkah took place post-biblically. So it started out as a small thing, and I think probably because it has a story to tell, the story of religious freedom, or the story of trying to put one's faith in God and not in the works of mankind, has caught on, and its propinquity to Christmas hasn't hurt. Or maybe it has in some sense, I'm not sure, but the truth of the matter is that there's a lot more. Hanukkah is a way in which Jewish people can find their roots. It's another opportunity to find roots.
We're just about out of time. We've got Christmas coming up too. One last word?
One last word would be the tree, Santa, gifts, carols, all of those things are wonderful, but it's the celebration of the birth of Christ. And whatever Christian denomination we belong in, we have to keep that foremost. And if we do that, then we will be spreading the peace that Jesus came to give us.
Thank you both for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
I hope we'll be able to continue this conversation at another time.
I hope so. Thank you.